Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. I am delighted to continue our series on the Coaches That Don't Suck series with one of my favorite coaches of all time, Jaden Easton. Welcome to the show.
Amanda, you're too kind. Honored to be on the show. Honored to be considered one of the coaches you think doesn't suck. We've known each other for quite a few years now. I'm sure we'll get into it, but it's just so cool to see what you've built, and happy to be able to contribute in whatever way.
I appreciate it so much. Just a little bio background on Jaden from Amanda's point of view. I met Jaden by enrolling in a coaching program that he and his business partners were offering. And I have a big fat award behind my head from working with
Yeah, you
them
do.
to generate $1 million through social media and specifically Facebook groups, which is just an outstanding accomplishment. I'm very, very proud. But what makes Jaden such an important coach in my journey is he really taught me two extremely important things. One was how to master my anxiety as a entrepreneur. I don't know if you're even aware of that, but I just had so much worry and concern about the future, and he just really helped me presence in. And the second thing he really taught were the operations of a great coaching business, especially a scaling coaching business, and how to approach things like managing the finances more clearly, understanding your KPIs, being able to track those things, and setting up some really incredible process. Like Jaden, you managed to kind of take what I had been trying to learn over like a 4 year period, and you condensed me into like a 6 month period, and that's why you're a coach who does not suck.
Well, thanks, Amanda. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were a dream client for us. Just somebody that came in and took massive action, was willing to learn and implement. And it's been great to see what you've been able to accomplish with all that.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And so, Jaden, why don't you take 30 seconds just for those that maybe don't know clients and community, maybe haven't met you before, and help them understand who you are and what it is you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, my name's Jaden Easton. I'm originally from Canada, but now living in Scottsdale, Arizona. I kind of fell into entrepreneurship at a young age. I won't give the full origin story, but when I was in high school, I founded this technology blog that went really viral. It was called ijailbreak.com, and it ended up being my first entrepreneurial success, and then also one of my first failures. And after that blog went viral, I started to scour all facets of the internet on what different businesses people are building online. I got into affiliate marketing for a little bit, became a top affiliate for a company called Internet Lifestyle Network. This was back in like 2014, 2015. And then the founder of that company, his name was Mark Hoverson. He was an entrepreneur based out of Arizona. Came up alongside of people like Russell Brunson, who I'm sure a lot of your audience is familiar with, the founder of ClickFunnels, and that whole era. Over the course of his career, he had generated over $20 million online selling courses and various programs, and ended up really locking arms with him, apprenticing with him in a lot of ways. I didn't go to college or university, but obviously education is very, very important. So I got a little bit more of a hands-on education at some points, working and living with Mark and his family for a few years. Unfortunately, before he passed away of pancreatic cancer, the same kind of cancer that Steve Jobs had in 2018. And it was after Mark's passing, I did a little bit of consulting, but really decided that once you're bit by the entrepreneurial bug, I think you can't escape that. And so through Mark, I met my now business partners and clients and community, Chris Stapleton, Landon Stewart, and it was about a year after Mark's passing, we decided to build a company really teaching a lot of the cornerstone lessons and foundations and philosophies we had learned from Mark. Mark was one of the first people to really learn how to create a cult-like culture, if you will, just a culture where people are just really bought in and excited using Facebook groups. And we took that and ran with it and built an entire company and business, teaching other coaches, consultants, and course creators how to build culture and community inside of their business through Facebook groups as a platform. This is about 2019, 2020. And it really resonated with people. We were able to help a lot of people, and scaled that business from what was a few $1,000s a month to, at its peak, upwards of $1 million a month along the way. So to date, clients and community, we've ran it from about 2019. So about five years or so now, generated over $20 million through that company. I've worked with close to 4,000 coaches, consultants, course creators. Our clients have generated over $100 million through Facebook groups. And just like you mentioned, we've helped nearly 40 people. We're at like 38 or 39 that have been awarded the $1 million group award, which you can see in Amanda's office there.
I get a lot of questions about that award. I think it's one of my favorite pieces of art that I've got in the house.
Nice.
So Jaden, congratulations, not just on all the successes. I mean, these are really impressive metrics to be hitting with a business in this space. But I like the impact. I think one of the things that really set the clients and community experience apart, I've done over $500,000 of various programs and
Yeah.
coaching. Like you're so right about the education piece. And I think like the I think the most valuable lesson that I got from working with you was to shift into a leadership of community mindset versus, I'm a coach who's looking for a client or I'm looking for the next client. It's like, what am I curating that people just can't help but want to be a part of, And just to this day, it's central to what we do and how we do things here. So
Yeah,
good.
yeah, I love that, and that's always. I mean, our company was called Clients and Community, so of course we really wanted to live up to the community aspects. I mean, that was one of the reasons. Shortly after starting the company, we decided to go all into events, and over the last 4 or 5 years or so, we've hosted over 15 events. And Amanda, I mean, you were at like 95% of them, and you saw them grow and get better and evolve over time. But that was really important to us, and we learned that from our late mentor Mark Hoverson. He was also really big into events, and not just events, where you're just sitting in a chair taking notes, but events that really do foster community and connection. Because I mean, I think we can all relate to there's such a light side to running an internet business, but some of the dark side can be, you can be sometimes a little bit alone, secluded behind the computer screen. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes that also makes you feel like maybe you're alone in dealing with some of the anxieties and challenges and obstacles that entrepreneurs deal with. But I know from attending events myself, and just sometimes as simple as having a conversation with somebody else and hearing that they're going through something similar just makes you feel not so alone in that journey.
Totally. I was actually just leading a coaching skills class for mastermind.com. And as we
Nice.
ended, like I like to teach through doing. So we have some breakouts where people are getting to coach together. And I just asked them, I was like, how was that? How amazing was that? And everybody's like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. And I said, okay, now you need to be friends. Now you need to connect. And, I literally was telling people, like, if you are doing entrepreneurship and you feel really lonely and like everything is on your shoulders, you're doing it wrong. Even if you're the founder, even if you're the weird one out, it's like even the weird ones, we need friends, we need connection, we need mentors. And it has been such a pleasure being in your community for as long as I have. And yeah, like it's so good. I did have a question for you about the coaching space in general. You've been in the coaching space for a while. I mean, to go from we jailbreak or we break your phone, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
coaching, like what was that transition for you, and why serve coaches the way that you have?
Yeah, I think for me, I just saw how I grew up in just a traditional family, stay-at-home mom. My dad worked just a traditional blue-collar job, but growing up, I noticed some of the struggle, right? Which I'm sure a lot of the audience can relate. I know a lot of people aren't born into connections galore, resources galore, um,
Right.
and uh, and success, right? And the
Hmm.
cards that I was dealt in life weren't necessarily the best cards to build a business, but it was because that I got into personal development at a young age from a family friend who was an entrepreneur that gave me the book Think and Grow Rich, which most people are familiar with. That's like the
Oh,
classic
really? That
personal
was your first
development book.
one?
That was one of my first books. I was gifted that book, and kind of he ran his own business. It was kind of like it was like a health and safety consulting business, really niched. But he was a coach, if you will, and I just saw it was because of that experience that really changed the trajectory of my life, because it got me just thinking bigger, and it got me to believe in myself, and it showed me, like you really can take your life in your own hands. You might not have been dealt the best cards, but that doesn't have to define you. So from a young age, I kind of saw how the impact of learning the skill of business can have in changing your life, but not only just your life. I mean, I think it's bigger than that. I think like one person can literally sometimes change the trajectory of your entire family tree, right? Because like if you start pursuing business and you're able to build wealth, and you're able to then open up more time space, so you can then also go inward and focus on some of your lessons that you need to learn, your traumas, whatever, right? You can not pass a lot of that negative stuff on. So I think for me, I just saw how my life changed by somebody being willing to take a little bit of time and
Hmm.
open my eyes and inspire me. So after the jailbreaking kind of website started to crumble, I wanted to find ways to operate in that industry, because I just saw the ripple effect and the domino effect that it could have on people.
That's so powerful. Yeah. My first book was it was The Happiness Project by
Nice.
Gretchen Rubin. And Think and Grow Rich is very dear to me because I have participated in some really cool projects related to that book. Like, listener, if you haven't read Think and Grow Rich, do it. Do it now. It's such a, I would say, foundational book for an entrepreneur, to just address some of the common mindsets and the pitfalls that we tend to fall into. I saw a really good response that you had to a post in your community where somebody was really challenging, like, why is it that coaches quit after a few
Sure.
years? And there were so many good response. Like, I couldn't help but respond to that one too. But you
Yeah.
had a really thoughtful response, and I loved it because it was through the lens of really like looking at it not so much as just a coach, but as an entrepreneur. Do you mind expanding on what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris Land and I made a decision this year inside of our business. We've primarily been a coaching and consulting company, but we made a decision well, really a year ago, to start investing some of our profits into a software company, still around Facebook groups and in community, but we decided this year to really kind of go all in on the software model. So I think that the post you're referring to, I think the question was like, is coaching really fun, or is it just an exhaustive cash cow? Most coaches do this for 3 to 5 years and then pivot into something else. What's going on? Is it boring? Thoughts? And there were some really great responses. I think that that there's no necessarily right answer to the question. And I saw like some people's perspective was like, it's because like a lot of businesses don't have the right systems and processes in place, so they burn out, or they don't have the hard skills of being able to properly manage cash flow. And I think there's a little bit of that to all of it. I think ultimately, I think at the end of the day, there's two types of people. I think there's the people that are built, they're hardwired to be coaches. They just enjoy the element of working with people one on one. That's on their heart, and they were put on this earth to be a coach. And I think those type of people, they may operate a coaching business for years. I think just like any industry, right? There's pros and cons of any industry. I think if you look at, there's so many pros to coaching, in the sense that, if you have a skill set that you can share with the world. I mean, the internet is one of the quickest ways to build a business. And obviously it's changed Chris Landon and I's lives, and it's changed so many other people's lives as well. But like some of the cons, the further you get in the coaching game, is you realize coaching businesses are difficult to sell if that's something that you want to
It's
do,
true.
because they're personally branded to your face. It's not to say it's impossible, and there's absolutely people that have sold coaching businesses, but it's not the norm. You're also operating in an industry that's constantly evolving and changing. Like marketing cycles and strategies change almost every year, and that can be fun and that can be exciting. But you fast forward 5 to 10 years, and that can also get a little bit tiring, and uh, and all the rest of it. So I think my answer to that question was along the lines of, I think at the end of the day, what you do just has to be something you thoroughly love and enjoy, and if that's coaching, then you probably will have a lot of longevity in this game. I think that the decision that Chris Landon and I made to, start to pivot into just other things, is we asked ourselves, like, where do we want to be in 20 years? And coaching wasn't necessarily the vehicle to get us there. So we decided to, pivot some of our coaching and consulting more so into the SaaS model that will one day sell, and, more so just doing business instead of teaching business. I think whenever you're pivoting, you gotta be careful you're pivoting for the right reasons. One of my
That part.
late mentors, Mark Hoverson, always used to share Proverbs 14:4, which is, where no oxen are, the trough is clean, but increases comes by the strength of an ox. Meaning, like, if
Mm,
you if you're not working on anything, the trough is clean. There's no crap to deal with. But on the
yeah.
other hand, you have to realize that, whatever industry you're in, you're going to have to deal with problems, challenges, obstacles, the metaphorical crap. So you have to just kind of choose the metaphorical crap that you want to deal with. So I mean, if you're thinking of pivoting or switching because you think it's going to be easier, oftentimes you'll discover that all along you just need to get stronger, because there's some lessons that you've been avoiding. So I think the big thing, I think for a lot of people, sometimes coaching will be the end destination. And for other people, coaching is going to be a stepping stone and a funding source for other dreams that are kind of on their heart and on their mind. And if you look at certain coaches that got their start in this industry, like Alex Becker, like Sam Ovens, they use the profits that you generated from coaching to launch software businesses and invest in other companies. And now they're more so doing business. And I think
Mm.
that's, at the end of the day, we all get into this game because we want the freedom to make choices to create the life that we want to create. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. You also have coaches that have been in the game for years and years and years, and will probably be a coach until the day that they die, and they have an incredible lifestyle. I think for people, you just have to, once you're in the game for a little bit, you'll figure out kind of what side you fall on.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for such a thoughtful response on that, because I think a lot of people are coach curious and they're like, maybe I want to go this direction, maybe I don't want to go this direction. And, it sounds like really finding that alignment is what matters. I watched a documentary a little while ago that really stuck with me. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but I'll have to put it in the show notes because I can't remember. But I do remember this, which is that there's three certainties in life. One is work, another is pain, and the other is uncertainty. And, I know when I first made the leap into coaching from corporate America, I did have the illusion and the naivete, and sometimes I really think you need that. Like, I think you need to be somewhat ignorant to pursue like new things and to go new directions. And I thought that it was going to give me, certainty and ease and of pain avoidance and all of that. And it actually in some ways did resolve some of the challenges and pains that I was having. But then there were new things that were complete
Hmm.
surprises that I had no idea. And I was confronted by the things that I had been avoiding as an employee. I was like, I cannot continue to avoid these developments or these changes if I want to go where I ultimately really want to go, which is to, add a lot of value and have some great alignment along the way. So good.
Absolutely. I think that, when you build, especially as you start to scale a coaching business and grow a coaching business, I mean, you start to get a MBA in business by experience, regardless of
Mm.
whether or not you've, gone to college or university. You just start to learn a lot of practical skill sets of business that can translate to other industries if that's of interest. And I love that you touched on that. I think, going through the gauntlet, the arena of entrepreneurship is also some of the best personal growth and personal development you can do, because you're absolutely gonna be challenged with stress, and you're gonna, yeah, you'll make all the mistakes. You'll tie your happiness and worth to your business, and then you'll start to realize that actually, no, okay, I'm more than just my business. That's something you'll go through. You'll start to realize that you think that achieving scale, or hitting 10K a month, 100K a month, whatever your goal is. Oh, my life is going to be easy street, and then you realize actually, oh wait, no, the challenges increase, but I get stronger. So it's like, people take nothing against. I invest in personal development events and all the rest of it as well. But I honestly, the best transformation of personal development I've gotten is just through the gauntlet of business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I think that that realization that you get at some point that you are not your business and your worth as a human is not tied to the performance of your business. That lesson, I think when you get that one you can carry forward into so many different opportunities and so many other things. I think for me, one of the most activating things about pursuing a coaching business in particular has been developing relational skills. Being able to make new friends and to support other people's adventures as well, and have kind of this satisfaction in community that I did not really activate when I was a corporate employee. So I love to ask in this segment, what do you think are three things that help a coach not to suck?
Three things that help a coach not to suck. That's
Yes.
a great question. I think the first one is, you have to have a vision beyond just yourself. Beyond, you have your revenue goal, but what is, if you had to align yourself with a cause or a change that you wish to see in the world, what is that? Because if we're hyper focused on just ourselves, then I think it actually magnifies the challenges and the stresses in our life. At least that's whenever I'm overly stressed out, overly anxious, I always know that's okay. I'm just hyper focused on me. How can I serve
Mm,
people?
so
So
good.
I think that's really big. I think the other thing is, not scaling too quickly. Our business did scale very quickly. We had three founders, and we also had the luxury of not having kids. So, we were able to basically just work in the business 24/7, and I think keep up with that scale. And, not to say we didn't make mistakes. We absolutely made mistakes, but I think we still managed to do it in a pretty clean way. But I've just seen a lot of people's reputations and businesses explode when they chase scale too quickly. I think it's better to try to scale in milestones, and also have ways to keep an eye on things like client success and results. Because I think
Mm,
especially in 2024 and moving into 2025, a lot of people have been burnt in
mm,
these coaching programs. you know, I really believe the future is how you perceive it, but at the same time, we have to operate in reality. And I've talked to enough coaches and that run large coaching businesses to know that like skepticism is higher than it has been. I think that's actually a really good thing, because it's going to cause people to play a
exactly.
much different game, and help keep people more accountable. I really think you have to scale slowly in phases, and it's much better to take a year or two to get to the scale that you want than do it in 6 months and ruin your reputation, have a bunch of chargebacks and refunds, lose your merchanting, and all the rest of it. So
Mm,
another mentor of ours, Keala Kanai, he runs a really
mm,
big business called Full Stack. And a quote that he told me that always has resonated is, "Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast." Like, you think you're moving fast until you run into the merchant account holding your funds. You think you're moving fast until you realize that you have a bunch of complaints, and then it takes you a lot more time to solve that and unwind that. So I think
mm,
not scaling too quickly. And then three, I mean, I'm a numbers and operations guy, so I think you also got to have a way to keep an eye on the numbers and the key performance indicators of your business. I think one of the reasons why entrepreneurs get in trouble in business, as especially as they start to scale, is they don't have quick enough feedback loops, right? So if you're waiting until the end of the month to judge whether it was a good or a bad month by the P&L that your accountant sends 1 to 2 weeks after the month is over, so you're operating essentially 30 days in the past. That's too late to course correct decisions. And in some cases, if you don't have enough cash on hand, that can be the end. So, and that's, speaking from experience, it's one of the mistakes that we made, and we realized we had to have a lot shorter feedback cycles. So it's one of the reasons, like, when in our business, we're getting sent the P&Ls every week, and I'm having a VA update a dashboard spreadsheet that has like a rolling 30 days and rolling 7 days, so I can actually see, like, are the amount of leads we're generating going up or down? Is the ROAS going up and down? Is this really pay attention to trends and all of that? So I think also, a lot of people are scared of numbers. They say that I'm not good at numbers, but when numbers equals increasing your impact and increasing your revenue, I think they're actually a worthwhile thing to learn.
1000%. Yes. And so, Jaden, thank you so much. Like, if people wanted to follow you, where
Yeah, probably the best place is either Facebook or Instagram. The handle is just I am Jaden Easton, and you can follow along with all things clients and community, and just some other random musings I share from time to time on mindset and personal development and growth and all that good stuff.
you've got something pretty special coming out in that area, don't you?
I I do. I do. Yeah, I'll touch on that very briefly. Something that I felt called to this year was really just starting to more so tap into my own inner intuition and voice, and something that I had a yearning for was to do a little bit more creative work. It's not to say I haven't been creative in clients and community, but I've been a little bit more left brain, focusing on numbers, the operation. So I felt this kind of pull towards doing something a little bit more creative, and instead of saying I'm too busy, I just decided that probably always going to say that for the rest of my life. So I'm working on a creative project right now that's coming out Friday, October 11th. It's actually a combination of spoken word poetry, music, and personal development. So it's going to be an interesting fusion, but it's something that I've just done for myself. There's not a monetization strategy about it. It's just being able to come from a place of just creating for the love of the game. So I'm excited to release that.
Love that. I'm so excited for you, and I'm very excited for that launch. That's going to be really exciting. Listener, go ahead and subscribe, and be sure to leave a 5-star review so that others can find this really valuable episode. Jaden brought his best. He absolutely deserves 5 stars. And go ahead and share this episode with 3 people who are building a business, and maybe they're building a coaching business. Maybe they're deciding to pivot consciously into something new. Go ahead and share this episode with somebody like that, because it could really shift their perspective and give them some new ideas. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Amanda.